My name is Sue, and at 37 years old, my family threatened my 12-year-old daughter with a machete and locked her in a freezing basement without proper clothes. They told her not to tell me. She did anyway. I didn't cry. I took action. 3 days later, they lost everything. If you have ever felt betrayed by the people who should have been your biggest supporters, let me know where you are watching from. Dramatic, right? Sounds like the kind of thing you'd expect in a bad crime show, except this was my life last week. Now, before you ask, no, I didn't see it coming. If I had, I wouldn't have let my 12-year-old daughter stay with them for a single minute. I might not be perfect, but I'm not negligent. I thought they were difficult. I thought they were selfish. I thought they were greedy, but I didn't think they were dangerous. That's the difference. That night started like any other. I came home late, exhausted after another long day at the rehab center where Dad was recovering. He's 72 now and had been feeling off, tired all the time, weak, hands shaking like he was nervous about a job interview he didn't have. He laughed it off as stress. Doctors, being doctors, wanted to run every test in the book. So, rehab it was. I drove there every single day, sat with him, made sure he was eating, made sure he was walking, because if there's one thing I've always been, it's the responsible one. So, yeah, I was tired. I wanted to kick off my shoes, grab a glass of wine, maybe watch mindless television. But the second I opened the door and saw my daughter, I knew something was wrong. She was sitting there on the couch, bundled in a blanket, even though the heater was on, pale, quiet, the kind of quiet that presses down on the room like fog. She sneezed, wiped her nose with the sleeve of her hoodie, and looked away when I asked how she was. "I'm fine," she said. The two most suspicious words in the English language. I tried again. "You don't look fine," she shrugged. That's it, just shrug. No explanation, no complaints, no usual 12-year-old drama about how unfair life was because she had homework or because TikTok deleted her video. Just silence. And let me tell you, silence from a kid is scarier than screaming. At least when they scream, you know what's wrong. I kept asking gently, "Rough day at school?" "No." "Fight with a friend?" "No." "Not feeling well?" Just a shrug. I could feel my gut twisting because mothers always know. We know, and I knew something had happened. I just didn't know what. Dinner was a disaster. She picked at her food like it might bite her back. I tried a joke. Usually she laughs, even if it's pity laughter. This time, nothing. Just a sad smile that didn't reach her eyes. I went to bed unsettled, my brain screaming at me that something was wrong, but I didn't want to push her. I told myself she'd talk when she was ready. I told myself it was probably school drama. I told myself a lot of things, but none of them helped me sleep. And then at midnight, I woke up to the sound of my bedroom door creaking open. My daughter, barefoot in her pajamas, crept into my room like a ghost. "Mom," her voice was barely a whisper. I sat up. "Sweetheart, what's wrong?" She stood there trembling, not from the cold this time, but from fear. Real fear. "You can't tell them." "I told you." My stomach dropped. "Tell me what?" "Promise," she insisted, her little voice cracking. I grabbed her hand. "I promise." She hesitated, her eyes darting around like she was afraid my mother or sister might burst out of my closet. And then, finally, she whispered it. "And he threatened me with a machete." I swear my heart stopped. At first, I thought I misheard machete. Did my 12-year-old even know what that word meant? I wanted to say, "Are you joking? Did you watch some horror movie when I wasn't home?" But one look at her face and I knew she wasn't joking. Her lip trembled. Her hands shook. She pointed it at me, she said. Grandma was yelling. They made me go inside. I couldn't breathe. And then she swallowed hard, her eyes filling with tears. They locked me in the basement. Just my t-shirt. It was freezing. "Mom, I thought I was going to die down there." I pulled her into my arms, my brain short-circuiting. My mother, my sister, threatening my child with a machete and shoving her into a basement like some kind of criminal. "What?" I whispered into her hair, my voice breaking. They said if I told you, something bad would happen to you." She pulled back, tears streaking her cheeks. I swore I wouldn't tell. I promised on God. Am I in trouble for breaking it? Oh God, my. "Sweet girl, no baby, no, you're not in trouble." My voice was steady somehow, though inside I was screaming, "You did the right thing. That promise doesn't count. You had to tell me." She clung to me, sobbing. And then, as if it couldn't get any worse, she whispered something else. I heard Grandma. She was with another man, not Grandpa. She laughed and called Grandpa a pathetic old fool. She said the only reason she stays is for his money. That was the moment something inside me snapped. My mother threatened my child. My sister locked her away, and together they laughed. About the man who had given them everything. I didn't cry, I took action. And believe me when I tell you, this was only the beginning. I lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling like it had the answers. My daughter's words echoed in my head: machete, basement, blood oath. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her frightened face in the dark. And then, like my brain was set on torture mode, the memories came, childhood memories I hadn't thought about in years, suddenly lined up like puzzle pieces. And for the first time, they made a picture I didn't want to see. Here's the thing, my mom had Anna before she ever met my dad. By the time he came into the picture, Anna was already 8, old enough to be her little shadow. My dad was older, established, a self-made man with his own business. He wasn't a millionaire back then, but he was successful, comfortable, ambitious. The kind of man who'd spend long nights at the office and still get up at 6 o'clock the next morning. When they got married, Mom had exactly what she wanted: security, money, and a man who'd take care of her. And when I came along a couple of years later, I thought I was joining a family. Turns out I was joining a hierarchy. Anna was always at the top. My mom favored her like it was a sport. She took her out for girls' days, shopping trips, lunches, even the occasional spa outing when Anna got older. And me, I was left behind with whatever nanny was around that week. I remember the revolving door of babysitters, new faces, new names, never sticking around long enough to matter. Some were kind, others barely looked up from the TV. But what I remember most is watching my mom and Anna leave together, laughing, while I stayed home with a stranger. Birthdays told the same story. Anna's were grand productions. Balloons, cakes big enough for 20 people. Expensive gifts that showed my mom had paid attention. I'd get something, too, of course. Something pricey, sure, but generic, once I unwrapped. A porcelain doll with glassy eyes. I never collected dolls, never even liked them. But I could tell it wasn't chosen for me. It was just bought probably by a nanny, probably with Mom's card, and a got thought. I got receipts. And then there was my dad. Now, let me be clear. He loved me. I know he did, but love is complicated. And sometimes it gets lost in the way it's given. He wasn't Anna's biological father, and he carried that like a badge of responsibility. He wanted her to feel like she belonged, so he poured himself into proving it. When she had a recital, he cleared his schedule, showed up with flowers, clapped. The loudest, when she turned 16, he bought her a brand new car to keep her safe. When I had a soccer game, he was often still at the office sending apologies through Mom. When I made honor roll, he said, "Good job, kiddo," between phone calls. When I turned 16, he told me he'd help with a used car, but that working part-time would teach me responsibility. He thought he was being fair. He thought because I was I didn't need the extra effort. I'll never forget the Day I finally asked him about it. I must have been 13, maybe 14. I said, Dad, why do you always do more for Anna? He sighed, put down his papers, and looked me in the eye. Because she's not mine, sweetheart. I never want her to feel like an outsider. You're my daughter. You already know I love you. I nodded at the time, but inside I thought, no, I don't know. I want to feel it too. That was my childhood in a nutshell. Mom choosing Anna, Dad overcompensating for Anna, and me caught in the middle, not unloved, but unseen. And you know what happens when a child grows up unseen? They get good at being invisible. By the time we were adults, Anna was spoiled rotten, and Mom was her biggest cheerleader. The two of them operated like a unit, whispering together at dinners, rolling their eyes at Dad behind his back, constantly demanding more. I once overheard them in the kitchen laughing quietly. My mom said he'd give us anything if we push hard enough, and Anna giggled like it was the funniest thing in the world. Meanwhile, Dad just kept working, kept providing, kept pretending everything was fine. And I built my own life, married, had my daughter, tried to stay separate from all of it, but family isn't something you really escape. Not when they live nearby, not when your child still wants to visit her grandma sometimes, and that was the cruelest part of it all. Because when my daughter went over there, sometimes just to see them, sometimes because she'd forgotten something, I thought she was safe. Sure, they were selfish. Sure, they were toxic. But I didn't think they were dangerous. Not to her. Not until she came back whispering about a machete. Lying awake that night, I realized the truth. The favoritism, the greed, the constant selfishness. It hadn't stayed in the past. It had only evolved. And now it was aimed at the person I loved most. And suddenly, all those childhood memories weren't just sad stories. They were warnings I hadn't understood, warnings I would never ever ignore. Again, my husband got home the next morning, suitcase dragging behind him, face tired from airports and boardrooms. He looked at me once and stopped. You didn't sleep, he said. No, I told him everything, the machete, the basement, the threats, the way our daughter had whispered it in the dark. And the other thing, what she overheard, Grandma laughing, calling Dad a pathetic old fool, saying she only stayed for the money with a younger man. I watched his face shift. Confusion, then disbelief, then pure rage. Sue, he said slowly, your dad isn't going to believe this on just her word. I know, you've told me 100 times. He never sees it when it comes to them. If you walk in there saying this, he'll try to smooth it over with a machete. My voice cracked. He didn't. Back down. He needs proof, the kind he can't ignore. And he was right. My dad loved me, but when it came to my mom and Anna, he always turned blind. If I went in there with nothing but my daughter's words, he'd want to believe it was an exaggeration, a misunderstanding. That's who he was, so we needed proof. That afternoon, we drove to the house. I still had a spare key. Dad had given it to me years ago just in case. My mom had her usual standing appointment that day, and Anna usually tagged along. I hated that I knew their schedule so well, but it meant the house would be empty. Walking up to the door, I felt like a trespasser in the home I grew up in. My heart hammered, my hand shook as I turned the key. Inside, it smelled the same. Lemon cleaner, faint perfume. I wanted to gag. We went straight to Dad's office. The security system was in a locked cabinet. Another key on Dad's ring had opened at once. I used it now. The DVR box blinked at me. Red light steady, copy everything, I whispered. My husband slid in a USB drive. We'll sort through it at home. Hours later, we sat hunched over the laptop, screencasting cold light across our living room. We fast-forwarded, I scanning the footage. For a while, nothing. The cat wandering across the yard, wine pushing branches, and then we saw her, Anna, in the garden. She was working trimming overgrowth, machete in her hand. She hacked at a bush, dragging branches into a pile, perfectly normal. Then our daughter appeared at the edge of the frame. She'd come unannounced, probably to grab something she'd left behind. She called out, and you could see Anna's head snap up. The audio picked up bits and pieces. Muffled by distance, we couldn't hear every word. But the tone was sharp, confrontational. Our daughter must have said what she'd seen or heard. Anna froze. The machete dangled in her grip, and then she turned, pointed it at her, my breath caught. Even with the bad audio, you could hear my daughter's small voice, shaky, pleading. Then a second later, my mom came storming out of the house, her voice clearer, shouting over the static. Together, they pushed her toward the door, hurting her inside. We couldn't see the basement, of course. No cameras there, but we didn't need to. My stomach twisted just watching that much. Jesus, my husband muttered. We kept scrolling. Later. Earlier, my husband stopped suddenly. Wait, what's that? Another clip loaded. The same garden, different time. My mom with him. The younger man, they were close. Too close. She leaned in, laughing, touching his arm. He kissed her cheek, then her mouth, and then her voice floating in the static of the mic. He's such a pathetic old fool. The only reason I stay is for the money. I slammed pause. My hands shook. My husband whispered, Sue, this is everything. And he was right. The next morning, I drove to rehab with the USB in my bag. Dad was in the common room, sitting in a chair by the window, looking healthier already. He smiled when he saw me. Hey, sweetheart. I sat down, plugged in the drive. Press play. He watched. His face went still. Anna in the garden, machete raised, my daughter flinching, my mom shouting, them hurting her inside. Then the earlier clip, my mom with the lover laughing, kissing, calling him a fool. When it ended, Dad didn't move. His hand trembled against the armrest. Dad, I said thoughtfully. He shut his eyes. All these years, and Anna, too, after everything, I reached for his hand. You didn't deserve this. He opened his eyes again. There was no softness left, just steel. Call the lawyer, he said. His voice was steady today, and soon my mom and sister would lose more than just my dad's trust. They'd lose everything. When Dad walked out of rehab, he didn't look like the man I grew up with. He looked emptied, and not just by the surgery or the weeks of fatigue. It was the betrayal, the kind that hollows you out from the inside. I don't want to go back there, he said at my door, duffel bag in hand. His voice was steady but flat, not with them, not after this. You won't, I said. Stay here as long as you need. He nodded, and when he stepped over the threshold, I swear his shoulders dropped an inch like my house was the first safe ground he'd stood on in months. He hugged my daughter first, held her so tight I thought she'd disappear into his chest. And then he looked at me. I should have seen it, he whispered. No, I told him. You couldn't have. I didn't either, but he shook his head, eyes wet. Not just now, back then, too. I failed you more than once. And maybe I should have told him it. Didn't matter that I didn't care anymore. But I did care. Of course I cared. So I let him say it. And I stored it away like a letter I'd waited 30 years to receive. The lawyer came the next morning, not in some TV drama whirlwind, just a man in a dark suit carrying too many files. We sat at my kitchen table, me, my husband, Dad. The USB drive sat between us like a hand grenade. I want to separate from her, Dad said. His voice cracked on her. I can't be married to someone who would. He stopped himself. The lawyer nodded slowly. We can start the process. I'll draft a petition for divorce, file it within the week. It won't be instant, but the court can grant temporary protections quickly. Financial freezes, access orders, even emergency custody of the house. Dad gripped the table. Do it. Then we pushed the USB across. The lawyer watched just enough. He paused the moment Anna lifted the machete, exhaled, and wrote something sharp into his notes. "This is evidence," he said quietly. "We'll preserve a copy for the police. This strengthens your position." That's lawyer speak for Holy. The police station was next. A small gray room with humming lights, the kind that make you feel guilty, even if you've done nothing wrong. We told them everything. Dad gave his statement. I gave mine. My husband filled in what he knew, and then my daughter, my sweet girl. She told her story, voice shaking, eyes darting to me every 3 seconds like I was her anchor. I kept my hand over hers the whole time. The detective listened without interrupting, then slid the case card across. "We'll open a case. This isn't a quick process, but with this footage and her statement, we can move." He didn't promise arrest tonight. He didn't promise miracles. He promised paperwork, interviews, investigation, which in real life is as good as it gets on the way out. I braced myself for my phone to light up with Mom's name, but it didn't. Of course, it didn't. She didn't know yet. That evening, after Dad had gone to bed early and my daughter finally drifted off, I sat with the laptop again. I couldn't stop myself. "Don't," my husband said gently. "I have to," I said. We scrubbed through more hours of footage, and that's when my phone finally buzzed. Mom, not because she was psychic, but because she'd realized the security system had been tampered with. She must have seen the logs. Her texts came in a rush. "This is a misunderstanding. Don't you dare show him. We can fix this as a family. Answer me." I blocked the number, renamed her trash, kept scrolling. Then we found it, late afternoon, the day after the machete. Mom in the garden with her younger man. Too close, too familiar, and careless. We turned up the audio. Fragments came through. Pills, schedule, weaker since. Doctor won't notice. My blood ran cold. Back it up, play again. Mom's voice clear this time. He's not eating much, so I've been helping with his pills. Just a little extra makes him calmer. The man, "Are you sure?" Her laugh, that familiar sharp laugh. It's just enough to take the edge off. The doctor sees what I want him to see. I froze. My husband whispered, "Sue, I know." We kept watching. Another clip, another day. Mom again rolling her eyes. Funny thing, his hands shake less when I forget. Then I remember and they're back. It's a delicate balance. Forget, remember balance. That word balance felt like a knife pressed under my ribs. I slammed pause. We're calling the detective right now. Dad came out in his robe, hair mussed, face drained, but alert. "What is it?" We showed him. He didn't speak for a long time, just stared at the screen. The way you stare at a car accident, you can't stop. "She was dosing me," he said at last, flat, not shocked anymore, just hollow. "Yes," I said, "and you started to feel better the second you left." He closed his eyes. For a moment, he looked ancient. Then he opened them again, still where sorrow had been. "Call the detective," he said. The detective's voice over the phone was clipped but calm. "Don't confront her. Don't tell her what you found. Keep the footage secure. I'll send someone for another copy tonight and elevate this to the DA's office." The lawyer, when I called, was colder still. "We'll fold this into the filings. And Sue, don't underestimate what this means." I hung up and sat in silence. My dad rubbed his temples. The men I'd once thought unbreakable, now bent under the weight of pills he hadn't chosen to take. My daughter stirred in her sleep down the hall. My husband's hand found mine, squeezed once hard. I closed the laptop. My mother's voice still rang in my head. Just enough, manageable balance, and suddenly the machete felt like child's play. Because this wasn't just cruelty anymore. This was calculated, and now, finally, we had proof. The trials took months, but justice came. My mother and her lover, convicted, attempted murder, child endangerment, 15 years each. The motive was obvious once the lawyers laid it out. Because of the prenup, she couldn't just divorce him. That would have left her with nothing. But if he got sick, if he died, she kept the money, the house, the lifestyle, and the lover. Even his illness worked for her. Hospitals, rehab, endless appointments. While he was weak, she had free reign of everything. Poisoning him wasn't just about killing him. It was about control. Anna didn't go down for the poisoning. The evidence wasn't there. And maybe she didn't know, but the machete, the threats, those were undeniable. The court handed her probation, mandatory therapy, and community service for child endangerment. Light compared to Mom's sentence, but enough to stamp her record forever. Dad disowned her anyway, stopped the rent payments, took her off the will, cut every cord. She threatened my granddaughter, he told me. That's all I need to know. And him, he went back to his own home, rebuilt his life. He's not the kind of man to hide in my guest room. Too proud for that, too wealthy, too stubborn. Everyone knows his story now. The self-made millionaire almost brought down by the people closest to him. Last I heard, he's dating again. Of course he is. Men like him don't stay single long. As for my daughter, she's thriving. Therapy helped, but so did time and love and the knowledge that she was believed. Her laughter is back. Her spark is back. She's 12 and she's stronger than I ever was at. Her age and me, I got what I wanted. The truth out, my child safe, and a rotten family legacy burned to the ground. In the end, they lost everything. But tell me, did I go too far or not far enough? Let me know in the comments.